Welcome to Sleepless in St. Canard, where nostalgia replaces REM cycles. I'm Kitty.
And I'm Ange.
And we haven't slept
in 30 years.
This is a podcast about the 90s Disney cartoon Darkwing Duck, where sometimes we have to watch episodes that we'd rather not watch. Episodes where apparently the real heroes were the friends we made along the way, and that women do not need names or personalities if they're hot, and where oil is king, as we discuss the pile of corpses that is Water Way to Go.
Water.
To
go. I can't even think of anything snazzy to say about it.
No. It is a snazless episode. Yeah.
It is an episode with a lot of sidekick abuse.
Yes. Yeah. I definitely stopped at some point and I'm like, this has to be so early in the production order because it is animated like a Looney Tunes cartoon. It looks like Tiny Toons, and I looked it up and apparently it was the first in the production order.
So this episode was definitely done by Kennedy Cartoons, and I think they normally handled Tiny Toons and some other stuff, but they're very well known for having a very distinct style. I believe Dry Hard was also done by Kennedy Cartoons, and similar thing, especially with Darkwing, like there's just something in the style in the animation that does feel very like, wow, this does not match the rest of the show.
It's like, wow, this man's Daffy Duck.
Essentially.
Yeah. There was even a few shots of Steelbeak, and I'm like, who are you? Stranger danger. So yeah, so that was a little weird. Just kind of caught me off guard a couple times too. I was like, this is super... I don't even want to say Looney Tunes, because Tiny Toons I feel like is the most accurate, because Looney Tunes I feel like really like swung for the fences, and Tiny Toons was kind of the safer version of that as far as animation wise, like what they would do. So that's what it felt like to me. But that makes sense if it's the same studio. It sure did feel like it. But if you would like to watch this episode, it is on Disney Plus, Season 1, Episode 8, Water Way to Go. Darkwing finds Steelbeak flooding the Sahara Desert, which, I mean, sure.
Very rude.
I don't care.
Very rude of him.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Interestingly enough, this episode did not have the disclaimer in front of it about this being an inappropriate view of different cultures and things.
I guess maybe because it's not a real culture at all? I don't know. Sort of.
I don't know. Oil Arabia? And they're all... okay. I don't know. Disney didn't seem too concerned about it. They're like, literally no one is going to watch this episode again. We'll be fine. So yeah, anything else you want to say before we hop into this oil slick of an episode?
Not really. I don't think there's a whole lot of Darkwing Duck news, at least since we've last recorded. It's mostly just the comics are still coming out, although as of us recording right now, a lot of them got delayed. So Justice Ducks number 2 got delayed, but will be out April 17th, 2024, I believe. And Negaduck number 5 is somewhere on the horizon, I think as of right now, for May 1st. And as far as I know, I think Negaduck is only going to have maybe 8 issues, because I have not seen any covers or any more pre-orders pop out since issue 8. And we've only got up to issue 4 that have been released as of us recording this. So there's still some ways to go, and we'll get there eventually. But yeah, I think that's about it. But if you want to keep up with comic-related news, I would recommend checking out Duck Talks over on Twitter. And I think in general, they're on most socials, because they tend to be pretty quick about posting updates whenever the comics get delayed, or they're just posting release dates in general for that stuff. So, yeah.
Up to the minute updates from Someone else, because it's not us.
It's not us. It's not us. So thumbs up for Duck Talks for keeping on top of that, because I sure have not.
Okay, so this episode opens up with us at Shush, where Grizzly Cough is giving Hooter a report about the death of an agent in Oil Arabia. And Hooter says that they've lost 24 agents in 2 weeks. So 2 agents a day have died. And so they must be ankle deep in dead Shush agents over there at this point, I have to imagine. And Hooter says, do you know what kind of a rat problem that creates?
The corpses.
He's just casually outraged that there will be a rat problem because all of his agents' corpses clogging the streets of Oil Arabia.
Are they gonna bring them back? Does he think the rat problem's gonna be at Shush? Do they just leave the corpses lying around without any preservation?
This is the Darkwing Duck version of you want ants? This is how you get ants. But yeah, this agent that they're talking about now apparently burned to death, which is pretty grim. Like, this we're not even 2 seconds in, and there's a heck of a lot of a body count going on here for a kid's show. Hooter decides to call in Darkwing to add to the pile of dead bodies. You know, I guess he figures, you know what, all of my agents have died. Let's call in the B team. And he sends a flash quack off to him. And that's it for them. Just a brief little segment of Shush. Strangely enough, the flash quack flies into the water of the bay to get up to the tower instead of just flying into the windows. But I guess that would be too much of a giveaway that the tower was Darkwing's secret hideout if they were just flying in and out all day. But I was just like, oh. Right.
It's water way to go.
Hey! Inside, Launchpad is doing some very high-stakes tic-tac-toe against himself. When Darkwing gives us his first I am the terror that flaps in the night speech. He does this in his own hideout, too, apparently. He says, I am the spider that nips at your neck. And it turns out that he's just testing out, like, a wire pulley system, trying to descend from the roof, like he's training to be an understudy for Wicked. But he's got this, like, giant, clunky-looking belt thing on. And, of course, Launchpad is like, oh, I want to try it, and pushes the button, and it shoots him up to the ceiling, and Darkwing falls down with his head, like, crushed underneath, like, the chunk of the ceiling. And this is where it was, like, the first instance of me being like, this is super Looney Tunes right now, because he's just, like, glaring at him with this giant chunk of thing, and his head is flat. But anyway, Launchpad complains that he never gets to play with Darkwing's doohickeys. Darkwing is like, no way, these are FHO, for heroes only. And Launchpad decides to try his hand at heroing, as it's the only logical response. Darkwing tells him that he doesn't have what it takes and starts listing off all the things that heroes have to do, ending it with think the unthinkable, to which Launchpad says, that's easy, I can go weeks without thinking. And Darkwing just says, believe me, I know.
Doesn't Darkwing also say think the unthinkable, and then he waggles his eyebrows?
Suggestively, yes. But it's like, sir? So this is just shaping up to be a very Darkwing is an asshole episode. Mm-hmm. And it kind of sticks to that landing. One of those ones where you're like, Launchpad, get some self-respect and dump his ass. Like, this is not a good friend.
Launchpad abuse.
For sure. And a flash quack finally arrives, and Darkwing reads it, and he's like, oh, this is a job for a hero. Launchpad, get the bags. And Launchpad's like, if I'm not good enough to be a hero, then go by yourself. And Darkwing's like, I can't fly. And he's like, well, it sounds like a you problem. I'm not going anywhere. And then Darkwing is like, fine, you can be the hero. And Launchpad is like, great, get the bags.
Good for you, Launchpad.
Yeah. It turns it on him immediately. Yeah. And this whole, like, him being upset that he didn't get to play with Darkwing's doohickey. It's gonna be funny every time. I really thought that was gonna come back, because it was just such a big part of their introduction in this episode, but it doesn't. We never see him use his little pulley system again or anything. It was just, how are we going to introduce Darkwing in this episode? Oh, I know, he'll just be coming down from the ceiling of his own hideout. But anyway, they arrive at Oil Arabia, which is a city on top of a very, like, spindly tower of rock. Like, if someone sneezes, it's gonna collapse. And when they land, oh no, hubba hubba, babe alert, as they see this girl with glossy purple eyelids, because that's how babes are in cartoons. And they immediately start fighting with each other to try to get to her first, until Launchpad is like, the hero gets the girl.
That's Oil Arabia, all right. That plateau makes it virtually impervious to enemy attack.
And salesmen, too, out there.
Set her down easy, Launchpad.
As always. Whoa.
Make that a Darkwing Ditto. Hold it there, big fella. I better handle this.
No can do, DW. Everyone knows the hero always gets the girl, and I'm the hero, remember? A promise is a promise, and you promised.
Nuts. I gotta take flying lessons.
Launchpad tries to misogyny his way over to this lady. Darkwing grumbles to himself about needing to take flying lessons as he picks up on a ticking noise. And lo and behold, there is a bomb! Just hanging out. Nobody notices. And she has like these giant beefy guards with her too, and it's just like there's straight up just a stick dynamite bomb with a clock on it ticking away by some oil rigs. Darkwing clocks it immediately, knowing that it's a Mega Blaster fission bomb with Swiss movement timing and optional radials. And then he puts on, I feel like every time I say this, the next episode that we watch, he looks even worse. He has, like, honest to God, the nerdiest looking little throwaway gag costumes ever. And this one, he's got, like, a lamp thing on his head and goggles, and he puts on rubber gloves like he's going to defuse this bomb. He looks so stupid. But as he's, trying to talk himself through disarming it, Launchpad's like, no way, this is hero work, and they just walks over and yanks the wires out of it. And of course it works. And this lady is very impressed with him, because Launchpad is so very heroic. And Darkwing, in a fit of jealousy, throws the bomb on the ground, and it explodes itself and him. Because Darkwing Duck. The princess, as she will forever be known, she has no name, throws a feast in Launchpad's honor, which is a very dangerous game there, princess, just to warn you. You could start a famine that way. Darkwing whines about how this should be a feast for him. He tries to muscle in and tells the princess that he'll lead the expedition to protect her kingdom. And the princess is like, shut up, peasant, sidekick. And Darkwing has a full toddler meltdown. He's like jumping on the table, saying that he's the hero, and somehow winds up with half a watermelon on his head. And then they both kind of just laugh at him. So, what he deserves, quite honestly. They start their expedition into the desert, and Launchpad is in, like, the cab of a limousine on the hump of a camel. And Darkwing is just riding a little camel. But as they're working their way through the desert, Steelbeak spies them through some binoculars. And he's got this weather device machine job that he uses to make a sandstorm tornado-y thing. Everyone starts freaking out, like their guides are like, oh, we have to get down, we have to get out of here. And the camels are all huddled and scared. And inside the little limo thing, Launchpad is listening to his headphones and doesn't notice that anything is wrong. The cab limo thing gets picked up by the tornado, and Darkwing's like, oh, I have to save him. And then, of course, through the comedy of errors, they both get blown away by the storm. The guide guys go back to the princess to inform her that the pile of corpses has grown by 2 and to expect the rat plague any minute, but she's like, my man ain't dead. He's a true hero. He can overcome any adversity. Ma'am, the only thing he can overcome is the limit of an all-you-can-eat buffet. There's enough with this Launchpad.
He has
But
the
no.
heart of a hero. but I don't know if that's
Where's
enough.
where's he keeping it?
In his those weird like things by his legs. He's got those lumpy hip things. You know what I'm talking about?
Like the riding pant puff that's just filled with hearts.
Yes. That's where all his major organs are.
Oh, you mean like connected to his body? I thought you just like he just had like random hearts shoved down his pants, like Launchpad's a secret serial killer. He's just like, I've got the heart of a hero. Want to see?
No, all his organs just live there.
They just migrate to his hips.
It's the only explanation.
You know what? I like it. Darkwing and Launchpad dig themselves out of the sand. Clearly not dead. And Launchpad's only plan is to find a gas station to ask for directions. And Darkwing takes it as well as he always does, as he starts narrating to himself their imminent death. Freaks out on Launchpad when he finds him sunbathing. And Launchpad's like, oh, don't worry about it. They sent the Navy. And the camera pans over and there's all these, like, naval ships in the middle of the desert that are just kind of... They look like they're falling apart, but I guess we learn very shortly that they are in the process of being built. They sneak up on the ship, they climb aboard, and on the deck there's a whole bunch of Eggmen doing little ship duties, like mopping the deck and stuff, but they're all wearing like Donald Duck's little like sailor cap on top of their eggs. So I like that on top of their little egg helmets. That was pretty cute. And apparently they're building a fleet of ships this way. Darkwing and Launchpad try to sneak in, but of course Darkwing steps on a missile that then kind of rolls across the ship and hits a mounted cannon thing that fires, and then they are surrounded and shot at point-blank range by a bunch of Eggmen, and I guess they're dead. But I don't know how they avoid it, but they do avoid it because this is Darkwing Duck. They kind of scramble away and jump off the ship and land in the sand. But oh no, it's quicksand. Everything was quicksand in the 90s, kids. Mm-hmm. But the quicksand just kind of like sucks them under the ground and deposits them, I guess, in a secret underground lair for F.O.W.L. Because they go under the sand and then they're just in the dark and you hear like a tussle and then the lights come on and they're just tied up in chairs. And then Steelbeak gets to come in and say his hellos. And Launchpad is like, oh, you're the one building the ships out there. And Steelbeak is always so great with his just flat sarcasm. He's like, oh, he's good. You should give him a promotion. And Launchpad's like, oh, I did get a promotion. I'm a hero this time. And Darkwing's like, for the love of God, would you shut the fuck up? Steelbeak is like, why don't you both shut up? I have to do my monologuing.
So, before we get to the usual torture thing that I know you're so fond of, let me explain why I'm stuck in this armpit of a desert.
You're obviously after Oil Arabia's oil reserves.
You are sharp. Hey, I like that. But you step on my lines. However, you're right. Gas makes the world go round. And from now on, want gas? You pull up to your friendly F.O.W.L station. Service with a smile.
Steelbeak, you're pumping unleaded, but coming up empty. Ha! Your troops wouldn't make it across the desert, much less climb the cliffs of Oil Arabia.
That's why I'm gonna attack by sea.
Basically going to attack Oil Arabia by sea, and Launchpad and Darkwing are like, haha, you're in the middle of a desert, as if he didn't already manipulate the weather to make a sandstorm attack them. But he uses this little weather device thing to demonstrate that he can actually do that, and does create a permanent little black cloud to rain on Darkwing, which is nice. I really enjoy how petty Steelbeak is. He's just like, oh yeah, here's a little black cloud to rain on you specifically. And it sticks around for a while, this little cloud. Because then we see Launchpad and Darkwing are locked up in like a prison cell, and Darkwing still has this little cloud over his head raining on him. He decides that he's going to hypnotize the next guard he sees with a method he learned from Tibetan yogis who befriended him as a boy. Huh?
The return of the Tibetan yogis.
You know? But instead of having to do any of that, a bolt of lightning comes out of his little black cloud over his head, and it strikes the bars of their cell, and the door falls off.
Huh.
Sure.
So, Steelbeak's plan backfired on him.
What else is new? It always the way. They take off to find the weather machine and find it being guarded by 2 beefy Eggmen. Launchpad is like, hey, I'm the hero, I should go get that. And Darkwing denies him. And he shoots his gas gun, and we get another I am the terror that flaps in the night. He says, I am the little mouse that eats your cheese. He says, I am Darkwing, and gets punched by both guys at once, basically. And they just, like, punch him through the cloud of smoke. And Launchpad, I guess, sneaks up behind and grabs the weather device. And they both start to run away. But they run right into Spielbeak. And Darkwing is like, oh, I'm going to use your own machine against you and zap you with lightning. And then he just starts hitting every single button on the thing, which makes another rain cloud. But that starts flooding the underground facility. And then, basically then just moves to the surface and starts flooding the surface.
So really, in the summary, it was Darkwing who flooded the Sahara and not Steelbeak.
It was Steelbeak's plan, but Darkwing enacted it, so... Yes. Steelbeak and his egg boys head to the ships, but since a lot of them weren't finished yet, they sink in the now full-blown ocean that has rained from the sky. Steelbeak takes out his rage on a crony. He's just like, oh, this guy, when I get him, I'm gonna, hey, you, come over here. And then he just, like, beats the hell out of this guy. And then he's like, thanks. This is where I was like, this has to be one of the first episodes in production order, because the way that he clobbers this guy, it's just like this guy's head is flat and his eyes are kind of poked up like snail eyes. Like, it's weird. But that's when I did my little research on that. So Steelbeak is like, all right, let's set sail to Oil Arabia. And he's like, oh, and Darkwing Duck and Launchpad, I guess, are dead out there in the water. But of course, we pan over, and as is the way of the 90s, Launchpad is surfing. Surfing them to safety. Darkwing is on his shoulders, and it's just kind of like, oh, here we go, dude. And they surf back up to the island. The ship starts firing at the palace, and Steelbeak uses the machine to, like, I guess, so it's like the lightning strikes the roof of the palace, and then it starts flooding from the rain, and the princess is now drowning, because apparently everyone in her kingdom was, like, at line at Starbucks or something, nowhere near their princess during an attack. But, luckily for her, Darkwing and Launchpad paddle in a bathtub. Where they got it, I don't know. And they scoop her up out of the water. And then she declares them both her heroes.
Aww.
And she hugs Launchpad and then gives Darkwing a kiss on the mouth. Hubba hubba. Before they're swept away. So that Steelbeak can basically shout at her from outside, giving his demands through a loudspeaker. And basically he just wants their oil, bro. And she has 10 minutes to decide, and he pulls out this little, like, hourglass thing, and then I guess just sits there and stares at it, because it's the next thing we see is him just, like, impatiently watching the hourglass. In that time, Darkwing and Launchpad come up with a plan, and basically their plan was to load up a bunch of oil onto the Thunderquack that they use as a boat, to shoot that oil through a hose onto Steelbeak's ship. And then the people of Oil Arabia had these big fans that they used to blow the storm cloud away from the city over the ship, and then the lightning strikes the ship and makes it catch on fire. And then Steelbeak is defeated.
That is odd, but also clever.
Yeah. The princess then thanks Launchpad, and she gives him a smooch. And Launchpad finally is like, oh, well, Darkwing is actually the real hero. And Darkwing, in a very much, this episode is almost over, he has to have learned his lesson fashion, tells her that Launchpad is the real hero, and as they walk off, Darkwing declares that they will be equals from now on. But before that can sink in, he's like, get the bags. And Launchpad's like, you got it, boss. So of course, nothing ever changes. The end. And also the kingdom is an island now, I guess, because all that water was still there.
Yeah, they didn't really I guess Steelbeak just perished in a fire with all the Eggmen, and
He was clinging to like debris with all the Eggmen after the ship burnt down. So I guess I don't know. Maybe they have him. I don't know, washing dishes after the feast of Launchpad. I don't know. But no Muddlefoots, no Goslin.
yeah,
This.
one of those episodes where Goslin is just not prominent.
A non-entity altogether. They don't even go to the house. They're just like, oh, wait, let's go to Oil Arabia real quick. Wait, did we have a babysitter?
I think this is one of those episodes that was probably from when it was still Double O Duck, when the premise was more spy-based, and Goslin, I think, was supposed to be his niece, and probably wasn't as prominent because, like, I know it definitely feels like, even if I recall correctly, Darkwing's voice, like Jim Cummings, it sounds a bit rougher, and I found a lot of the early episodes in particular, he sounded like that, so I think it must be, like, super, super early in production.
Yeah. Well, again, like what I saw online, and the internet is just full of truth, says it was the first in production order. So, yeah.
Let me check our website because I have it listed there too. By the way, we have a website. We've had one since the beginning. We never mentioned it. Sleepless-saintcanard.com, where aside from the podcast, we do have an episode guide and episodes sorted by character appearance. And in the episode guide, I have
we also have pictures of ourselves on there. We have profile pictures of ourselves. If you're curious what we look like.
Yes. Yes, we do. Okay, so you're right. So in production order, Darkly Dawns the Duck is listed first, but it's listed as a production code unknown. So I don't know if that's actually true, but you're right. After that, Waterway to Go premiered on September 18th, 1991, and it is the first. And then in air date order, it was the 10th episode. Which is interesting.
Yeah, I would say this is a firmly... you know what? I really expected to hate this more than I did. It's just kind of like an overall meh. I don't feel like there was anything about this episode that made me particularly... Like, I didn't hate it as much as I hated the Lilliput episode, but it's a very low bar. So I want to say, like, I'm not going to give it negative points or anything. I feel like it's a 1 out of 5 on the freshness scale.
I give it,
it's fine.
A 1.5, 2 out of 5, like you said. I think for me, a lot of, like, the spy genre episodes are the ones that I find more boring. I guess because for me, I'm more into, like, superheroes and superhero lore, and this felt more like not that.
Yeah, this was a straight up, like, shush and foul episode. And it was very much like the super evil organization has made this device and they're going to use it on a world power, and like, yeah. The spy movie textbook plot.
Yeah, and this is one of those episodes when I watched it that really made me think about how Darkwing really does not treat Launchpad well in some of these episodes. Like, there's other episodes where he's better, or he'll treat Launchpad like garbage and apologize ever so often, like seldom.
Mm-hmm.
But episodes of like this where you can see how he treats Launchpad like, I don't know, like a servant, essentially, like, fetch my bags and, do this and that. So, but it was nice to see Launchpad put his foot down and actually get his way for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, all things considered, he did a pretty good job of being the hero in this episode.
Mm-hmm. I feel like even if Darkwing had managed to defuse that bomb himself, he probably would have done it wrong. And it would have exploded anyways.
Absolutely. 1,000% it still would have wound up blown up in his face. Literally and, figuratively. I don't know. I feel like Shush episodes, the fun dynamic is Grizzly Coffin Darkwing. And interestingly enough, even though this was, like a Shush and Fowl episode, Darkwing never interacted with the shush side of things. It was purely like, I got a flash quack, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I just can't. I will forever think of this episode now and think of the pile of corpses that Jay Ganderhooter is like, this is how you're gonna get some rats. He just didn't even care that man got burned to death.
Forget I am the mouse that nibbles on your cheese.
On
It's
your
I am the
cheese.
rats that nibbles on your shush corpses.
Yeah. So, how would you rate this? Oh, you think you said 1.5. Okay.
Yeah.
So there we go. That's our episode for you today. It smells better than a pile of corpses. And next time we will be discussing Darkwing Duck number 10. So we'll spin the wheel next time, but until then, Prime doesn't sleep, neither do we.
Squeak, squeak.
Stay away from my corpses.